Grace thought the fire had ended it all. She thought Evelyn was gone. But now her own husband, Daniel, the man she trusted, was part of the very secret she had been fighting to destroy. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon. The church had just reopened with new leaders and a new choir. Grace walked through the old Sunday school hall, checking the place before weekend cleaning. She stopped in front of the big photo of past youth members. Her fingers traced over Igioma's smiling face. Then the picture frame shook, fell, and cracked open on the floor. Behind it, hidden in the wall, was a small envelope. It was dusty, sealed with red wax, and had one name, Igioma C. Grace picked it up carefully. Her heart beat fast. Her fingers trembled. She did not open it alone. That night, she sat with Daniel. He looked at the envelope and whispered, "This looks old. How did it get behind the picture?" They opened it slowly. Inside was a folded note. "If you are reading this, I did not leave. I was told to. I was warned. But if anything happens to me, follow the pink cross in room 13. Behind it is the truth." Grace stared at Daniel. "Room 13. There is no room 13 in the church." Daniel nodded slowly. Then, they remembered the old children's prayer block, locked and unused since the fire 10 years ago. The doors had been sealed after an electrical problem. No one ever mentioned it again. The numbers had faded, but maybe one of them was room 13. That night, they took a flashlight and snuck into the back of the old block. It smelled of dust, burnt plastic, and forgotten memories. Grace found a small door near the corner. A faded number was scratched into the wood. Daniel pushed the door. It creaked loudly but opened. Inside was a pink cross on the wall, tiny, like something a little girl had drawn in chalk. Grace walked to it. Behind it was a loose board. Daniel pulled it out. And behind the wall was a black box. The box was old, almost falling apart. Inside it, they found a single memory card wrapped in soft cloth. Grace looked at Daniel. "We need to see what is in it." They did not want to watch it at home. They went to a cafe with private booths and borrowed a laptop. Daniel inserted the memory card. It had one file. A video. They clicked it. Igioma appeared on screen. Her face was swollen from crying. She looked tired, like she had not slept for days. Her voice shook. "If you're seeing this, I have been taken or made to leave. Please. I did not want to go. Pastor John said God had chosen me. But when his wife found out, she threatened me. She said if I speak, I would sleep forever." Grace covered her mouth. Igioma continued, "He promised to help me, but now I think he's scared of her. Evelyn knows something. Something big. She said she is not just a pastor's wife, that she runs everything." The video glitched. Then came a second clip. A secret recording from Evelyn's voice. "You don't get to just leave. You are pregnant. That child. It changes everything. And if you tell anyone, you are finished." Igioma begged her in the recording. "Please, I just want to go. I will not tell anyone. I swear." Evelyn's voice replied coldly, "We will see." The video ended. Grace was shaking. Daniel's fists were tight. "She killed her," Grace whispered. "And maybe more," Daniel said. "We need to find out what Evelyn is really hiding." The truth was darker than they had ever imagined. And it had just begun. After watching the video, Grace could not sleep. The voice of Evelyn haunted her dreams. That woman was not just jealous. She was dangerous. The next day, Daniel and Grace went back to the church, pretending to help and clean. Their goal was to check Evelyn's office before someone else destroyed the truth. The church secretary had left early and the security man was asleep in his chair. Daniel picked the lock. They opened Evelyn's office door. The place was spotless. Her perfume still hung in the air. Her desk looked untouched. Grace opened the drawer and saw pens, Bibles, and documents. But one drawer was locked tightly. Daniel pulled a pin from Grace's hair and opened the lock. Inside the drawer was a folder, labeled confidential for destruction. There were letters, photos, and an old pregnancy test with a date written on it, 6 months before Ijeoma disappeared. But then Grace found a thick brown envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside were photos. Ijeoma. Another young girl. A man tied to a chair. And Evelyn, standing behind him. One picture had something written on the back. He tried to expose us. Daniel turned pale. Who is he? Grace did not know, but the man in the photo looked terrified. His eyes screamed for help. Then, under all the papers, they found a flash drive. Back at home, Daniel opened the files and there were emails between Evelyn and someone named Madam G. She is asking too many questions. Move her. We will call it a transfer. Let the fire do the rest. Fire. Daniel gasped. The fire that closed room 13. That was not an accident. Grace shook her head. It was a cover-up. They now had proof that Evelyn and someone else, maybe this Madam G, were behind everything. Grace did not feel safe anymore. But she was more determined than ever. The next Sunday, Grace sat alone in the church. She kept looking around, and was scared that someone would catch them. Evelyn had not been seen for days. Some said she traveled. Others said she was taking time to pray. But something felt wrong. A small girl from the teenage choir came and sat beside Grace. Her name was Lizzie. She had always been quiet and shy. She leaned in and whispered, "I know what they did to Ijeoma." Grace froze. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice shaking. Lizzie looked down. She was not the first. Grace grabbed her hand. "Tell me everything." Lizzie nodded. 3 years ago, there was another girl named Rebecca. She was in the church drama team. She got close to Pastor John too. Then one day, she disappeared. They said her family moved. But she did not say goodbye to anyone. Daniel joined them, listening closely. Lizzie continued, "I saw Evelyn slapped Ijeoma once, behind the vestry. And Ijeoma cried. She asked her, 'Why are you doing this?' And Evelyn told her to keep quiet, or she would go missing too." Grace's stomach turned. "Why did you not tell anyone?" she asked. Lizzie looked scared. "Because one girl tried. Her name was Favor. She told her mum. That same night, they had a robbery. Their house was burned into ashes." Daniel sat back slowly. "It is all connected." Grace nodded. "We need to talk to Favor. If she is still alive." Lizzie gave them Favor's address. But that night, as Grace and Daniel got into their car, a dark SUV started following them. They were no longer just searching for the truth. They were being hunted. Favor lived in a small rented flat at the edge of town. It took Daniel and Grace an hour to find it. They knocked about 3 times before she opened the door slowly. She looked tired, thin, and afraid. When she saw Grace, her eyes widened. "You should not have come. They are watching me." "We know about Ijeoma," Grace said softly. "We just want the truth." Favor closed the door quickly and locked it. "I told my mum what Ijeoma said. That Evelyn hated her. And that she was pregnant by the pastor. My mum wanted to tell the elders. That night was when the fire started. We lost everything. So, we have to run away. Daniel asked, do you have anything left? Any proof? Favor nodded and walked to a drawer. She brought out a small notebook. Ijeoma gave me this. She said if anything happened to her, I should keep it. Grace opened the book. It had songs. But the last few pages were notes. Evelyn said I belonged to something called the Chosen Circle. She said I was marked by prophecy. I don't understand. She gave me a drink before choir practice. I felt dizzy. I woke up in her car. If she finds out I am writing this, she will finish me. Daniel shut the notebook. Grace asked, what is the Chosen Circle? Favor whispered, it's a secret group. They said, they run the church. Even the elders fear them. Then her phone beeped. She looked at it and went pale. They are here. A black car stopped outside. Daniel grabbed the notebook. We have to run. They escaped through the back door. But now, the Chosen Circle knew they were close. They drove all night. Favor had given them one last piece of information before they left. The name and the place of the retreat house, Hillview, 3 a.m. every Thursday. That night was Thursday. Grace and Daniel did not sleep. They reached the place, an old mansion behind a hill, surrounded by trees. They hid behind the bushes. The wind was cold. The building looked abandoned. But at 2:45 a.m., black cars began to arrive. Well-dressed people stepped out from different cars, some were men and some were women. Most looked like church elders. Some were even choir members. But all wore black cloaks. Grace clutched Daniel's hand. This is real. They watched as the group entered the house. The door was open for just a moment, enough for them to see red lights inside and strange symbols on the wall. They waited 15 minutes. Then, silently, they crept to the back and climbed through a broken window. Inside, the air was heavy with incense. A circle of candles burned on the ground. People stood around it, chanting in whispers. Then Evelyn stepped into the center. She was dressed in full black, her hands raised. She was weak, Evelyn said loudly. She spoke too much. We gave her chances. But she wanted love over power. Grace gasped. She may be talking about Ijeoma, Daniel whispered. Then someone stepped forward. Pastor John was among them. He looked tired, sad, and broken. Tonight, we welcome a new voice and prepare for the return. The people clapped. Grace and Daniel could not believe their eyes. This was no longer about secrets. It was about something bigger and evil. They rushed home before sunrise. They said nothing. Grace cried silently as Daniel drove. When they reached home, they locked the doors and sat in silence. Then Grace's phone rang. She looked down. The screen said, Ijeoma. She dropped the phone in shock. Daniel picked it up and answered. Hello. Then a soft voice said, help me. It was Ijeoma's voice. Where are you? Grace shouted, taking the phone. The voice whispered, room 13. Then the line went dead. Grace stared at Daniel. We checked room 13. Daniel nodded. Do we miss something? That afternoon, they went back. Room 13 was quiet. Still dusty. Still smelling of smoke. They checked the walls again, and the floor. Then Grace noticed a small line in the wall under the cross. They saw a door. Daniel pulled it. A square of wood opened. A staircase. They walked down slowly. It was dark and cold. The stairs led to a small underground room. There was a mattress. Empty food cans. And a wall filled with notes, names, pictures. Ijeoma lived here, Grace whispered. But she is gone now. They had found the hiding place. But who else knew? The notes on the wall had more names, girls from years ago. And one paper caught Daniel's eye. A list that says, "Next offering is, favor, Lizzie, Grace." Grace dropped the paper. Her name was next. Grace could not eat or sleep. Her name was on the list. They were marked for something terrible. They had only one choice, which is to destroy it. Daniel made the plan. They would return to the retreat house with kerosene and matches. That night, they parked far and carried the bottles. The place was quiet. No chanting. No candles. But the air still felt heavy. They poured kerosene at the door, windows, and walls. Daniel lit a match. The flames rose quickly. As the house burned, Grace heard a voice. A scream, from deep inside. It sounded like someone crying. "Ijeoma!" Grace shouted. Daniel pulled her back. "It is not real. We have to go." They ran into the night as the fire roared. Behind them, the secret place of evil turned to ashes. But Grace's heart was not calm. She felt someone was still watching her. 3 days after the fire, the church was in chaos. The elders quit. And the youth choir stopped meeting. Whispers filled the air. People said Evelyn had vanished. But Grace knew better. That night, she sat at her window, staring at the sky. Then she heard a knock. Daniel was asleep. Grace walked slowly to the door and opened it. Evelyn stood there. Her hair was wild. And her eyes were red. She was holding a knife. "You took him," she whispered. "You took my circle. You took everything." Grace froze. "You think you won," Evelyn hissed. "But there is one more truth." She stepped closer. "Your husband was one of us." Grace's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Evelyn smiled darkly. "He helped recruit the first girl. Ask him about the red cloth." Then she vanished into the night. Daniel sat still and silent. He then whispered, "I did not know it would go this far." The next morning, Grace sat across from Daniel. She held up the red cloth Evelyn had dropped at the door. Daniel's face changed. "You remembered it," she said. He nodded slowly. "I was young and new in the church. They said it was just training. I handed it to a girl named Mariam. After that, she disappeared." Grace stood. "Why did you not tell me?" "I forgot," he said quietly. "Until Evelyn reminded me." Grace broke down crying. Daniel walked toward her. "I am not like them. I left. I tried to be better." Grace looked up. "But now, you are part of the story too." They sat in silence. Outside, church bells rang again. A new leader had been chosen. But some stories never really end. They just hide in the walls, waiting to be found. I hope you enjoyed the story.